Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. At AM 630. WMAL.
6:30. Happy Wednesday to you. Brian Neiman, Brian Wilson with you. Next hour, Sarah Carter from the Washington Examiner joins us. We'll get into foreign policy issues, what's going on in Egypt especially. Stuart Varney from the Fox Business Channel coming up at 7:36. Talked a lot about the Redskins getting a nice little deal from Virginia, from the state government, from Loudoun County, and from the city of Richmond. Basically, it's about $6.4 million, $4 million coming from the state, another $2 million coming from Loudoun County, and $400,000 coming from Richmond. In return, the Redskins will stay in Virginia. They will keep their headquarters in Ashburn. They're going to build a new facility there, essentially, $30 million facelift, and then they will have training camp in Richmond. Before they were having it in Loudoun County, and they've moved it around. They used to be in Carlisle. At times they were in other places in Maryland. But there will be in Virginia for everything the Redskins do, except the actual game days when they'll be in Maryland at FedEx Field. Right. The question is whether or not that's worthy of taxpayer money to go to the Washington Redskins, which I believe is the second richest franchise in the United States of America. Delegate Robert Brink joins us now. He is a Democrat from Arlington, not a big fan of this, and it seems that there may be some bipartisan support on that. Delegate Brink, good to have you on. Thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, Brian. Brian, how are you doing?
Well. You tell me, why is this a bad use of taxpayer money to give to the Redskins, and they're going to stay there? The governor says, there's a lot of money that comes into the state of Virginia from the Washington Redskins.
Well, there's no question about that, and there's no question that we like having the Redskins in Virginia. It's a question of whether or not we had to make this deal and whether or not it's a good business proposition for the Commonwealth and for the local governments that kicked in money as well. When the governor's people came before the Appropriations Committee this past week down in Richmond, what they said was that this was risk mitigation. In other words, they were concerned about the Redskins leaving. They didn't have any proof that the Redskins would leave, and the questions that we had were around whether or not, given Virginia's favorable business climate, whether or not the Redskins actually would have left.
Are you against giving the Redskins money in altogether, or are you against the amount of money that the Redskins received?
Well, the amount that the governor is planning on giving them wasn't justified at all. This is $4 million in economic development money. We have scarce funds that we use to attract businesses and to grow jobs in Virginia, and this wasn't the way we should go. The governor had come to the General Assembly a couple of times during the past year while we were in session and had proposed this idea, and every time the people who are responsible for the government's budget said, no, this isn't a good idea. And what he did basically was an end run around us in order to put this money in.
On that question, are you saying he didn't have the authority to spend this money?
No, he does have discretionary authority to do it. It's a question of whether or not it was proper and whether or not he proceeded in a kind of conciliatory fashion with the General Assembly. We had said, no, we don't think this is a good idea, but he went forward with his discretionary authority anyway.
So you just disagree with the fact that he did what he had the authority to do. You just disagree with the decision.
That's right.
But you're not questioning that he had the authority to make the decision.
Yeah, he could make the decision. He did make the decision. But the thing is that his people couldn't come up with any rationale for why he made that decision.
Well, when you talk to tourism and economic development people, they often can make a pretty convincing case, and I've worked with, not in this particular case, but in other cases I've worked with people who do this for a living, and they can make a pretty good case that every dollar you put into tourism and economic development comes back to you about sometimes 4, 5, 6, 7-fold. So, although it is a lot of money, you can make a pretty good case that you get, a lot of that money back, and several times over.
No, that's true. There's no question about it. And as
so what's the problem
then?
then?
To have the Redskins here. But the issue is whether or not, looking at it from their business perspective, we needed to make this deal. You look at Virginia, look at the tax rates that they're looking at on the other side of the table. The taxes that we levy on individuals and corporations are much lower than what our competitors impose in the District of Columbia and in Maryland. I think that's the decision point right there.
Although there was reporting that both Maryland and D.C. were wooing the Redskins in a big way. And there was one article that said D.C. was offering more than what Virginia had offered the Washington Redskins. So there was some competition here going on, right?
Oh, sure, there's no question about that. But at the end of the day, you still have a higher sales tax rate, you still have a higher personal income tax rate, you still have a higher corporate income tax rate. And that's the basis on which this business decision would have been made in the minds of a lot of us.
All right. Do you know how does the money work? I mean, do the Redskins just get $4 million in cash and they can use it any way they want? Is it a tax break? How does that work?
One of the things that came out during the session is that there is not a firm agreement right now. In other words, what kind of performance measurements are going to be imposed haven't been fleshed out yet.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on the show, Delegate Robert Brink, Democrat from Arlington. Thanks very much.